Hey Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Awesome, Roll, you.
Good, good. So for the audience out there, we're sitting here with Chris Sky. We're in his election campaign headquarters here in Toronto, and we're going to ask him a few questions. I got to meet Chris Sky for the first time a couple of days ago, and it piqued my curiosity to the point where I wanted to know a little bit more about him and share with you guys. So thanks so much for taking our interview, man. Appreciate it. Okay. So how about you tell us a little bit about you, man? Like, I mean, how did you grow up? What was your education like? You know, what was your family like? That kind of stuff.
Okay, well, my family's Italian on both sides. My actual last name is Saccoccia. That means pocket in Italian. Everybody calls me Chris Sky because my family business is Sky Homes Corporation. And I've been working there since I was 13 years old. We were a building corporation. And then by the time I was 19 and I was in first year university, we transitioned into a development and building corporation, which is a completely different animal. And that's when I left school. I was pursuing a career in medicine in school, and I left after the first year when I got the opportunity to do a career in development and building, because to me, it had more potential than making a few $100,000 a year and working in an office every day. So I liked the idea. I left school and I started pursuing it, and everyone started calling me Chris Sky because no one could say my last name properly, apparently. But my parents met when they were about 13, really, really old school. They're now in their 70s, 71, and they've been together that whole time. I'm the youngest of three children. I have two older sisters. Not too many people know that. I'm the only son. I'm the youngest. And I had a pretty normal life. We grew up, I was born in North York, right in the heart of Toronto, at Jane and Finch.
No way.
Yeah, where people in Toronto know about Jane and Finch.
Yeah.
And then we moved to Woodbridge. I grew up mostly in Woodbridge. By the time I was 21, I moved out. I was still working for the family business. I was living with my girlfriend and building my first house. And then I just kept flipping real estate and moving all different parts of Ontario, and got used to working in all different parts of Ontario, different municipalities. And in my industry, we were doing development, design, build, and planning. So we're working in the private sector, but every day I'd have to work with the government. I need to get their permissions, I need to get their permits, etc. And I need to work within their parameters. So I got really used to cutting through the red tape and bureaucracy. It just came like standard operating procedure for me. So I don't know, I guess I was kind of made for what's going on now. And I never was political, ever in my life. I've never voted.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that all the people that are watching this that have never voted actually come out and vote for me. That's the whole reason I'm doing this, because I would actually vote for me. Because why hasn't anyone ever voted? Because when you look at the candidates, you think, well, he or she isn't really going to make my life any better. Yeah. So why am I going to get off my ass, go all the way down there, and give my support to this person who's going to do nothing for me? And that's why 71% of people didn't even vote in the last municipal election for mayor. So that just goes to show you what kind of disconnect there is between the political class and the people they're supposed to be serving.
Okay. So one of the questions that comes up about your past in working and in business is taking on the job of mayor of Toronto is a big job, man. There's a big team of people that need to be navigated, and there's a whole bunch of ins and outs. So what kind of success did you have in your business? Like, what was give us an idea of what makes you think that you're capable of being able to do this?
Oh, well, I did everything in my business from the developmental analysis, which meant I'd have to take the deals, I'd have to go through the deals, I'd have to figure out how many millions we'd need to borrow from the bank, how many years we would need it, how much it would cost to do the development, how much it would cost to do the building, how much we'd be able to sell the houses for, and of course, the exact timeline that all this would be occurring in. And you're talking about getting loans in the tens of millions of dollars from these banks, and you're telling them exactly when you're going to pay it back and exactly how much profit you're supposed to be making. And in the development industry, your profit margins are single digits. You're talking like 8%. So if you're wrong about any of your estimations, or you're wrong about any of the costs, the timeline, any of it, if you're wrong about any variable whatsoever, you basically lost all your profit, and you might even work 5 years, take out a $50 million loan and lose money. That's very common. But in our business, it pays to be efficient. It pays to be very accurate. And that's exactly what I did. I've done dozens of deals, and I've never failed once. Every single deal I've ever put on the table for my corporation has turned out to make us money. Any deal that I said do not do, well, we did not do. But so it shows that I've been able to work in finance, with government, with owners of companies, with purchasers, with salespeople. I was forced to communicate with virtually everybody, whether they're from the private sector, the public sector, whether they're a multi-billionaire or they're somebody that's getting paid an hourly wage to work on a construction site. I've dealt with everybody. So that made me basically a universal communicator.
Okay.
And I never spoke out in public. I never knew I had that ability to public speak. I always knew I was great at making deals. I was great at bridging the gap with people. I was great at making things happen. But I never spoke publicly, never had a reason to. I've never politically motivated or politically active. I've never been to a protest or anything like that. What I did like to do was travel the world. That was my wife and I's favorite pastime. And we kind of saw this coming. Like a lot of people said, everyone knew about the one world government, the one world currency, all that stuff for years and years and years. The only thing we didn't know is how they were going to kick it off to make it all happen. So we knew that the plan was, for many years, we knew one world government would involve less traveling for the citizens, less freedom, etc. So leading up to the whole pandemic, my wife and I were traveling quite a bit. We were traveling almost every month, and we hit up 40 different countries. And everyone kept asking us, why are you guys traveling so much? And I said, first of all, what's better than traveling? Like, honestly, what are you going to spend your money? Are you going to go to a nightclub and pop bottles? Are you going to go spend it in the Yorkdale shopping center? Or are you going to go Thailand and all these wonderful places? Me, I'd like to travel. And I told everybody, we're traveling so much because I believe pretty soon you're not going to be able to. And people thought we were crazy. And sure enough, one thing on my wife's bucket list, she always wanted to go to Carnival in Venice. Carnival is the party that they've been having since the 1700s, when everyone dresses up in those crazy costumes. They wear the masks, and those kind of masks, Halloween masks, and they have a good time. So we flew to Venice for my wife's birthday. And we landed in Venice on her birthday, February 27th, which happened to be the last day of Carnival, and it's supposed to be the biggest and best of the parties. So she was super excited, and as soon as we landed, guess what happened? They declared Venice the epicenter of the viral outbreak for COVID at the end of February 2020. So they immediately canceled Carnival the day that we landed, and it was the first time in the history of Carnival that they've ever canceled it.
Same day.
So we knew this was going to be something significant. But at the same time, there was really nothing going on the ground. Like everyone was calling us from Toronto. Oh my God, the hospitals in Venice are overflowing. People are dropping dead. Meanwhile, my wife's shopping in Gucci, and I'm at the gym overlooking the Venetian canals and having a great time. So I couldn't understand the disconnect. So I already knew, if what's going on the ground is not matching what they're saying on TV, they're lying for a reason. So we got a little bit nervous and said, let's get the hell out of Venice. And we went to Florence. Sure enough, a couple of days later, they locked down Venice. So when we were in Florence, we were like, okay, we're safe here now, until we heard of one COVID case in Florence. I'm like, okay, they're going to lock this place down too. So we fled Italy altogether. And I say fled because within 3 days of us leaving, they locked it down and we wouldn't have been able to leave. And we ended up in Netherlands and France for a couple of days before making it back to Canada at the beginning of March. And as soon as we got back to Canada, we started trying to sound the alarm. They're going to lock us down. I'm like, they're doing it over there, they're going to do it over here. Everyone thought we were crazy. And sure enough, March 16th, boom, they locked us down. I was completely beside myself. I didn't know what to think. The first thing I thought about actually was, it's going to destroy our economy. How can we have lockdowns? Like, people need to go to work. People need to have their businesses. The small businesses in Canada are the biggest thing that keeps Canada going. People don't understand, but small business represents 90% of all the businesses in Canada, and small businesses are tied to about 70% of the jobs in Canada. So it didn't take a genius to understand that if you close down the economy for even a month or two, you're going to have a massive destruction of the small business sector, which is going to be a massive destruction in the job sector, which is going to bring massive problems and massive inflation that we're seeing now. In fact, I did an interview in April 2020 where I predicted all the financial fallout that we're seeing now way back then, because it wouldn't take a genius, it's just common sense. But I didn't know how to get the message out to people. I didn't know what to do. And my wife came over to me and showed me an online flyer for a protest. And I had laughed about a protest. Give me a break. She's like, well, what else are you going to do? And I didn't have a better idea. She was right. I said, okay, let's go to this protest. So we went down to Queen's Park, and this was like the end of March 2020. I don't remember the exact day. But it was, as you might expect, a fringe minority with people with weird signs and weird haircuts and everybody completely disorganized. Nobody knew everybody. It was just like watching a bunch of chickens with their heads cut off, including myself. I'm not going to lie. So I didn't know what to do, what to think. And before I could even figure anything out, I saw the mainstream media show up, which I thought was weird because normally they don't want to cover a protest. But it made sense because our protest was so pathetic. They wanted to cover it and show everybody how bad we looked. And so I knew exactly what they were doing, and I saw what they were doing, so I got upset, and I grabbed the camera of the CBC, and I pushed it on me, and I just gave them a piece of my mind. I just ranted for about 30 seconds. And then everybody around me heard my voice and heard what I said, and some little old lady walked up to me, and she's like, you are a very good speaker. And she hands me a megaphone. She's like, I want you to speak. I gave it right back to her. I said, no. I don't want to speak. The last thing I want is the government to close my business, come after me in the media, come after my family, come after my reputation, arrest me, etc. I said everything that I knew would happen to me if I spoke out against the government. And that's what they want people to believe because they don't want you to go up against them. And I was just like everybody else. I didn't want to put up with that either. And then my wife looked at me, and it's like a memory etched in my mind in slow motion. And she looked at me and said, you know what's going on, you know how to talk to people, and you're a leader. She said, if you don't speak out, everything that happens is going to be your fault. So yeah, that's what she said. And she pointed at me like that, and she said it in front of the little old lady who looked like she was about to cry because I gave her a megaphone back. So what the hell would you do at that point? I grabbed the damn megaphone and started talking. And then I realized when I speak, I have this uncanny ability to actually make people listen to me. Who knew? So I started speaking, and we started protesting, and we came up with the Just Say No movement. It just hit me. I was like, this is all psychological operation. They're programming the people. They have been programming the people for years, if not decades. I'm like, so why don't I just use some of their programming against them? The Just Say No movement was one of the most widespread movements in the anti-drug campaign, and it's literally etched in everybody's mind. I don't care if you're 6 years old or you're 65 years old. So I came up with the idea of just say no to the mask, just say no to the vaccine, just say no to COVID in general. And it immediately went viral on virtually every continent around the globe. And we started a massive movement. And it was a way not only to make people aware, but to let them know that they weren't alone. And a lot of people thought like them. And it actually sparked that whole global movement. And
well, not only were they alone, they were afraid.
Yes.
And that leads me to the next question. It doesn't seem like you're afraid of too much. I mean, you go at things pretty hard. What would you say to those that were afraid and that are still afraid? I mean, you set an example. What would you say to them? I mean, what advice do we have for the people that are afraid?
Well, it's never easy to do the right thing. And the more bad things they're going to do to you, the harder they're going to make it to do the right thing. So it's up to you to want to do the right thing. That's just the way I'm made. I always want to do the right thing. If I was in school and I saw a bully attacking some kid, I would go and help them. That's just the way I was. Mm-hmm. I would put myself between that bully and that person. That's just always the way I was since I was 6 years old. And I guess I just took that into adulthood. I don't like bullies, and I don't like people taking advantage of others. And when I saw what they were doing, especially who's going to suffer the most? The children. So if you can see what's happening, how can you just sit there and do nothing? There's that old saying, all evil needs to succeed is for good men to do nothing. And it's never been more true and never been more demonstrated than during COVID. Because what did? They told you to close your business. Everybody knows that's not right. And what did the good men said no? The other men just went along with it. Then they told you to put a mask on your children. A good man would say no. And what happened? 95% of men put masks on their children, put masks on their family. And then it came the jab. Even to inject an experimental known toxin into your body and into your children's body. And what happened? Instead of good men standing up and saying no, the vast majority did nothing. And what happened when good men do nothing? We went through 2.5 years of lockdowns, 2.5 years of the worst economic crisis that we're having in a generation. And now we have the whole world in upheaval, which is what they wanted. So now they can try to push this whole climate change agenda on us. The whole COVID thing was just the start. Everybody needs to realize that. COVID was the start to try to get you used to the idea that personal rights and freedoms are no longer paramount to a successful society, as they have been for generations, to the point where we literally fought world wars and millions of people gave up their lives to protect this very notion. But then came COVID, and all of a sudden rights and freedoms weren't paramount to a successful society. Rights and freedoms are selfish and dangerous. And the people that used to protect rights and freedoms, who were patriots and heroes, are now domestic terrorists. That was a big cultural shift. And that's what COVID was trying to do. And the other thing they wanted to do is get rid of the notion of individual responsibility and replace it with collective responsibility, you know, out of every Marxist or communist playbook. And when you do those two things, when you destroy the notion of individual rights and freedoms and you destroy the notion of individual responsibility, you're prepping everybody for the new climate change agenda. 15-minute cities, personal carbon allowance, digital ID, digital currency. And if people don't understand how dangerous that is, today I went to the gas station. Guess what happened when I got there? Sorry, sir, all the card processing systems are down. Oh, well, do you still take cash? Yes, of course we do. Oh, imagine we didn't have cash. Oh, I guess I'm just not getting gas today. I guess I'm just not opening my business today. I guess I'm just at the mercy of the government because they could shut us down at any time and make any excuse for it and keep us away from being able to make a purchase. People don't understand the importance of cash, anonymity, privacy, having the ability to make transactions without the government being involved. People have taken all of this for granted. Everything. People have taken the entire world for granted. Thankfully, COVID woke a lot of people up. I believe it was a double-edged sword. Yes, the government advanced their agendas quite a lot. However, the government also showed their true colors. They showed the entire world, billions of people, that they are willing to sacrifice you, your family, your future for their agenda. And we know it's an agenda because it happened worldwide. It was coordinated by unelected world bodies, and it was disseminated through our stupid governments that work together because they don't work for the people. They work for unelected people from global agencies to push global agendas. They believe that you're not supposed to live free. They believe that they need to manage you. And that's what the 15-minute city is all about. They want to be able to put you in a smaller and smaller place, and they want you to have less mobility, less financial freedom, and less ability to increase your social status or your standing in life. They want to get you in a perpetual cycle where you are literally a slave, and your kid will be a slave, and their kid will be a slave, and their kid will be a slave. And no matter how many hours you work, no matter how smart you are, no matter how dedicated you are, you're never going to get a better life. You're always going to be exactly what they want you to be.
And this is coming from the fear that people are exhibiting and therefore caving on things they otherwise wouldn't cave on.
100%. That's exactly what, try it before COVID. Go tell someone that rights and freedoms are selfish and dangerous. They'd laugh at you, spit at you, and probably fight you. Now, they won't even say a word. We literally reprogrammed almost all of society. And people haven't gotten back. Everyone thinks everything's normal now because they don't have to wear a mask in most places. No, the psychological operation is complete. Everyone in planet Earth right now is suffering different variations of post-traumatic stress disorder. And that is why they're trying to make all these new changes to us before we can come back to our senses. People don't realize how emotionally traumatized they are. And they really don't. And they're trying to take full advantage of that. And that's why I'm trying to insert myself into a position, just like the schoolyard bully, where I can be between the people and between the forces trying to hurt them.
Okay. So is there anything you're afraid of?
Yeah, obviously. I don't want them to hurt my family. I don't want them to hurt my wife. I don't want them to hurt me, obviously, but
okay,
that's a little lower on the list.
Now let's just talk about this for a little bit because I've seen what you've gone through. I don't know how many times you've been arrested.
About 26.
Okay. And you had your driver's license taken away from you?
Yeah, driver's license, gun license, all my guns, while they were calling me an attempted murderer of police and government officials for the last 2 years. So yeah, it made it really hard to make friends.
Okay, so they've made it hard, but now you're running for mayor of Toronto.
Yes.
I don't think they're going to try to make it any easier.
They're definitely not going to try to make it easier. They already tried to threaten me, to stop me from running. They tried to do a media campaign saying that I wasn't really running. And then when they couldn't deny it because we had about 100 supporters at City Hall waiting for us with banners and signs, now they're trying to label me the so-called joke candidate.
Can you say who they is?
They would be the establishment. Okay. All these people that you're seeing, they're all part of the same machine. Yeah. Like, look at it this way. There's like 28 people running for mayor right now, including me. Most of these people were politicians. They were MPs, they were councillors, etc. And they all want to be the mayor of Toronto. They all say they're going to help you, and they're all going to start copying my platform talking points because I'm the only one that has anything important to say. But the reality is, they might talk like me, but ask them one simple question. What had any of them done for you in the last 3 years? Any of them. You know what they did? They voted to keep your business closed. They voted to lock you down. They voted to jab you. They voted for mandates, travel and otherwise. And they voted to give themselves multiple pay raises every single time. But what did they do to help you? Absolutely nothing. What are they going to do to help you now? Absolutely nothing. They want to replace John Tory with another cookie cutter candidate who's just a figurehead for the mayor who's going to implement their agenda. And their agenda is going to be the 15-minute city, the personal carbon allowance, and this crazy transgender agenda for the children. I know about it. I know it's coming. I was in Alberta. I was in BC. I was all over Canada and all over the world. And SOGI is very dangerous. SOGI is sexual orientation, gender identity, and it's the new curriculum that they're bringing in. It's already in BC schools, and then they already tried to put it as a pilot program in Alberta, where I called out Adriana Lagrange, the education minister, because SOGI is very dangerous. SOGI stands for sexual orientation and gender identity. And this is that whole theory where there's no such thing as a man and a woman, and gender is a spectrum, and there's really 76 genders, and you should be able to choose your pronouns. And they start asking little children as young as 6 years old if they're non-binary. And they start doing little things in the classroom where they make the children choose their pronouns and wear it on their chest. And they do other little things where they have the kids choose their gender or even choose a different species that they want to pretend to be. And while they're doing all this to your children behind your back, they quietly introduce new school board policies, including in the Catholic school boards in Ontario, where if a teacher or the school notices that your child wants to have a different pronoun or a different gender, because they've been teaching them to do exactly that. Mm-hmm. Well, not only will they not ask the parent's permission, they will not even inform the parent. So they will groom your child to believe that it's really a girl or really a cat, and they'll start calling them by their preferred pronoun, and you won't know about it until 6 months later when your kid comes home and finally tells you. And then if you don't affirm your child's new gender identity, you're going to be dealing with CPS. This is just another way to try to weaken the family. This is just another way to insert the state in between the parents and their children. And it's just another way to actually traumatize and subvert children. I'm not against LGBT. I am not against trans people at all. You guys want to have drag queen events? Go and do it for 18 plus. It's that simple. Children should not be sexualized. Children should not be told of their 76 genders. Children should not be told they're non-binary or born in the wrong body. This is ridiculous. And there's adult trans people who will say the same thing. Mm-hmm. They'll come out and say, I'm a man who happens to be gay, and I like to wear dresses, high heels, and makeup. I was not born in the wrong body. This is who I am. So not only are you attacking children now, and you're really perverting their minds, you're also denying the identity of these trans people. You're telling them that there's something wrong with them and they were in the wrong body. You know how offensive that is? Like, how about you just let them be who they want? How about you let children grow up, and by the time they hit puberty and by the time they have their own self-exploration, they can decide who they want to be. I fully support any adult's decision, unless they're having sex with children or animals, to do whatever the hell they want. But when it comes to children, children need to be children. Children need to have the parents as their primary caregiver and primary influence in their life. That is the most important aspect that I'm trying to get through to people. And this SOGI thing, they don't even call it sex education. You know what they call it in the curriculum? So the parents have no idea. Language arts and physical education.
So gym and English is now SOGI.
That's right.
So what do you, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry.
No, what do you think of the new law prohibiting protests within 100 meters of any LGBTQ?
You're talking about Bill C-100 there?
Yes.
Yeah, it's only in Ontario, correct, right now? I think it's horrible. Obviously, it was a knee-jerk reaction to the Emergency Act, and this is a way for them to try to put the fear into protesters. This is also a way for them to basically declare the Emergency Act without declaring the Emergency Act, because that bill gives them all pretty much the same powers of the Emergency Act. We can stop your protest, we can remove your rights, we can arrest you, we can take your business license, we can freeze your bank accounts. Basically everything they did with the Emergency Act, they codified into a law that they can utilize at any time they want. And it makes it even easier now, because we all know that there's a lot of agent provocateurs and controlled opposition in the movement. So now how hard is it to take a legitimate protest that was happening and get one bad actor to go towards one of those places where they're not allowed to be, like a hospital? And now the whole protest gets taken out because they got one guy that's really a government agent to go and do exactly what the law says they're not allowed to do.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to narrow down specifically, look, you got to have a lot of motivation. You got to have a lot of drive. And people have accused you, I know because I've asked online, well, he's got a lot of money and, he's doing it for the money. He's doing it for the fame, the whatever. What motivates you, man? Why are you doing what you're doing?
First of all, I don't have a lot of money. I saw something going around the other day that said that my father's worth $997 million. Guys, if I had $997 million, I'd already be the Prime Minister of Canada, and all these guys and girls that had done this would either be prosecuted or running from prosecution. I don't even have the money to fund an election for mayor that's going to cost me a few $100,000 to win versus these guys that have millions and millions of dollars. Why? Because the good people don't have that much money. It's the bad people that have money. And the bad people that have money don't want to give me money to help me beat the other bad people. So this idea that we're doing it for money is ridiculous. I do have properties. I have worked very hard and been very successful over the last 25 years. And if I really wanted to, I could sell my properties. I could go to Mexico, and my wife and I could be living on the beach, and I could be living like a king and raising my family and not worrying about going to jail, not worrying about everything else. Problem is, I have a moral compass. Yeah, I'm here because I have to be here. I'm here because it's like she said, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? If I didn't do what happened in the last 3 years, would we be where we are today? I don't believe we would. And I literally feel like there's millions and millions of people depending on me. And every time I look at a child, I think about how I would feel 10 years from now, walking in a 15-minute city with my personal carbon allowance and seeing the same kid I saw like 5, 6 years old, now like 15 to 20, and living in that world and living with that kind of shackles over them, and then looking at me with a look that says, you failed me. I would rather be dead than watch the children be brought into the bondage that I know is coming. If you know something that bad is coming, and you know that you even have the slightest chance to do anything about it, and you didn't do everything in your power to stop it, how the hell are you supposed to live with yourself?
So what do you say to those people who say, what do you mean something bad is coming? I understand things are not really that good and maybe our government overreach, but what do you mean?
Did you not get a taste of what they want from you? They don't want you going more than 5 kilometers from your house. They don't want you driving a car. They don't want you flying on an airplane. They don't want you eating meat. They literally don't want you doing anything. They want to have complete control over every aspect of your life from cradle to grave. And if you don't have a problem with that, you're not even a human being. You're literally a drone. You should want to be independent. You should want to be free. You should want to have self-determination. And you should be smart enough to understand that if you listen to somebody else, whether it's the government or me or anybody, over your own personal intuitions, and you listen to somebody else to let them make your decisions for you, well, guess what? You're never going to get the result you want for yourself. You're going to get the result that person or that entity wants for you. And if you're stupid enough to think the government wants what's best for you or wants better for you than you want for yourself, well, then you're an idiot. I don't have anything else to say to you. You're a complete fool, an absolute fool. And I have no problem telling you that. And unfortunately, Canadians were some of the biggest fools in the entire world. Why? Because they had the most trust in their government. Other countries, Poland, Ukraine, all these other countries that had really bad governments at some point, they all know what this looks like. They all see it coming. It's not an accident that the people that come to our protests are the same ones that escaped communist regimes, whether they were European communism, whether it was South American communism, or whether it was Asian communism. We have all these people from all different parts of the world coming to our protests. Why? Because like, oh my God, I fled my country because of exactly what's happening here now. Meanwhile, you have the average Canadian, oh no, the government doesn't want to hurt us. The government loves us. This is all for our health and safety. No, it's about power and control. And that's where United Noncompliance came from. That came out of the Just Say No movement, but it came out of necessity to explain what's going on and how to fight back. Because Just Say No obviously isn't simple enough. Yeah. You know, when someone tells you to do something you don't want to do, simply looking at them and saying, no, was too complicated for people. So I literally needed to come up with a brand new invention called United Noncompliance and have to break it down into 3 phases to literally explain to people how to fight back effectively. Yeah. And it's pretty simple. The first phase of United Noncompliance was the global awakening. And what does that mean? It means making everybody realize what I just told you, that none of this is about safety, none of this is about your health, this is all about control. Let that sink in. This is about control. When you accept that fact, not my opinion, that fact, all of a sudden, everything becomes clear. All of a sudden, you are now what we call awake. You now understand the truth. And now, all the propaganda that they're slamming you with to make you scared and make you easy to manipulate will no longer have the same effect. In fact, it'll probably make you upset and probably make you more willing to act out. So before you can even get to phase 2, the government realizes you're awake, they already want to nullify you. Because once you're awake, it's like turning you on and turning on your individual power. And now you're ready not only to fight back, but to connect with others to fight back. So how do they nullify you? Negativity. That's why they bombard you with nothing but negative messages in the media, the government, public health. Because the moment they can make you feel negative and you start projecting negativity, you could be awake. You can understand what's going on. But now they've turned your power back off. They've nullified you. Now you're not ready to fight back. You're going to look and say, oh, it's not worth it. It's inevitable. They're going to win. There's nothing we can do. And not only are you not going to fight back, you're not going to be able to connect with other people who are fighting back. So that's their trick. Even for the people I wake up, they try to nullify them by making them feel hopeless and making them feel despair. You cannot let that happen. Everybody sees me smiling every day, and it's because I stay positive. How do I stay positive? I live the life the way I want, despite what they tell me. And when you get that trick, and you can remain positive, you can keep your power turned on, not only are you in the position to fight, you can connect with others to fight back. And that brings us to phase 2, taking action. And we were taking action all over the world. Protests, books, documentaries, lawsuits, you name it, we did it. And we were making headway. We were waking people up. We were inspiring others to stand up. And we got to the point where we got rid of most of the mandates all around the world. Believe me, they would still have them if they could. They are not there because we stood up for ourselves. Not because the benevolent government loves you, not because COVID was over, simply because the people said enough is enough and we're not going to do this anymore. That's the only reason. And they don't want you to believe that. They want you to believe that they just did this. The government never wants you to understand that you are in control. They always want you to believe that every decision they made was their decision. But it wasn't. It was our decision. Yeah. We are the ones that made that happen. And now they're scared. Now they're seeing that we can move to phase 3 of United Noncompliance, my favorite, holding them accountable. And this is the most important. It's one thing to get your freedoms back temporarily, but if you don't hold these people accountable, if we don't make examples of them, if there's no punishment for everything they've done, what's stopping them from doing it again? Answer, absolutely nothing. In fact, it's guaranteed that they will as soon as they feel like they can. So we need to get this follow through. We need to hold these people accountable, and we need to show that the people are the ones in the control. And we need to show the bad people that if you try to do this to us, it's not going to work out too well for you. Yeah. And that's why I'm running for mayor, because it will put me in a position where my voice that I've been using to try to wake people up, to try to inspire people to fight back, will be amplified, it will be legitimized, and it'll give me a whole another set of tools that I can use to help the people and hurt the bad people that are doing this.
Okay, so I wanna speak just briefly to the people that do feel a little bit hopeless. They've kind of given up faith in the system. And you know, when I asked them about this, they're talking about, well, what about the ballot machines? What about the rigging of the elections? How do you expect to win against that level of corruption?
It's pretty easy, man. Federal elections are a lot easier to rig than municipal elections. Well, especially in the States. The States, they have the electoral college. Over here, we have to have the seats. But wherever the seats are hotly contested, you have very close races. It's easy to skew a race of 5 or 10%, especially with electronic voting machines. But when you're talking about a municipal election, there's no seats, there's no electoral college. They just count all the votes. And vast majority of time, the winner in a municipal election gets like 75% of the vote. How are they going to skew the results when you got 75% of the vote? They can skew the results somewhat. They can't skew the results that much.
Right.
So as long as we get the voter participation, as long as we get the votes that I know we're going to get, nobody's even going to come close. I envision that we're going to get more votes than the next 3 closest candidates combined. So when you're going to have a landslide victory like that, there's no way they can rig it.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. Oftentimes the mayoral race, as I understand it, is a popularity vote. It's a name recognition vote. So talk to me about your name recognition, popularity versus some of the others, or the top contenders in the mayoral race.
Okay, well, the reason people say that is because the mayor is the highest ranking political position that you can attain without a political party. There's no political party in mayoral races, and they do that for a reason. Because political parties, as we all know, are points of division. And when you're trying to unite a city, you don't want division. Just like when I was trying to unite the people in the protest movement, we didn't want division. So that's why I love the mayoral race. It gives you a lot of power. It gives you a lot of recognition. But at the same time, you don't have to sacrifice who you are. You don't have to owe anybody any favors. You don't have to toe any party lines. In fact, the only people you owe are the people that you serve. And that's what I love about the idea, because it literally, I feel like I've been doing this the past 3 years already, serving the people, standing up for the people, putting myself in harm's way for the people. Yeah. And now I can do it officially with a title and with swinging a lot bigger stick.
Okay, so you were mentioning that, and I agree. I mean, it gives you more power. As a matter of fact, the mayor, as I understand, has voted himself a whole bunch more power through the Mayor Act.
That was actually Doug Ford who gave the Mayor Act power.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So people have asked if you get in, are you going to repeal that, or how will that work?
I would definitely use it. I would use it for the advantage of the people. And how would I use it for the advantage of the people? Simple. Any legislation or any bylaw that we would put forth to get voted on, I would make sure it's in the interest of the people. I would make it as public as possible. And then if the council wanted to try to override me with using a 2/3 vote, I would make every single one of the people who voted against the best interest of the people public. And then we'd let the people deal with them. And I think when you hold their feet to the fire and you hold these people accountable and you make the process transparent, you're going to see a lot of government officials, instead of doing what the government wants, doing what the people want.
So how do you determine what the people want? I mean, there's a lot of people in the city. How do you figure that out?
It's pretty simple. You ask them.
What forum, what platform? Like, how do you...
We're going to be, just in our election, just in our campaign alone, we're going to be hitting the streets every day in every different borough, and we're going to be talking to community leaders, and we're not going to be going there with pre-scripted lip service to try to get an emotional response from these people. We're going to go and ask them, what are the specific challenges and specific problems in their communities? And guess what? They're all going to have different answers. And that's just going to give us a wonderful blueprint of how we can help each community. And then we're going to know exactly what we need to do. But we already know in general what we need to do. Right. It's pretty obvious. We have a massive standard of living and cost of living crisis. We have a massive housing crisis. And it's all because of mismanagement of the government. It's not because there's something wrong with Toronto. It's not because there's something wrong with the people of Toronto. It's because of intentional government mismanagement to create the conditions where they can embezzle, they can steal, they can misappropriate. And we know there's billions and billions of dollars that go missing each year. There's a $16.1 billion budget, and they can't account for a lot of it. And every single year that budget grows, yet every single year the services dwindle, and every single year the government grows at outpacing of the economy itself. And that's a recipe for disaster. And that's why we've seen over the last 30 years the standard of living decline while the cost of living has gone up virtually every year. And with the housing, and so if we can save a couple $2 billion and put that money back into the community, we're already going to help the poorest and the most vulnerable in the city. And then to fix the housing crisis, it's very simple. The red tape and bureaucracy of getting permits and everything to do with the government approval process. Time is money to big corporations. If you delay them 6 months, that's 6 months of interest payments they're going to be paying on their land loans. That's 6 months of salary payments they got to pay everybody that's working for them. And if they can only develop 100 houses in that time because you only can process that many permits in that time, well, if it's not keeping up with how many houses we need, which is exactly what's been happening, what are you going to see? Housing prices keep rising uncontrollably, and that's what we are seeing. But if they cut down the bureaucracy and the red tape, and now in that same amount of time, they could develop 150 houses, 50% more, wow. Now all of a sudden, all that interest payment, all those costs that they have to pay for keep their company going is now going to be divided over a much larger base of units. And what is that going to mean? Lower housing prices. And it's also going to mean we have enough inventory for people. Imagine that. Imagine making the government get out of the way so the private industry can do what the private industry is supposed to do. It's really not rocket science. It doesn't take a genius. It just takes somebody to have the balls to stand up to the establishment, because they have a never-ending gravy train where they get whatever they want, when they want, how they want. And whatever crumbs are left, they give to the people if you're lucky. No, that's not going to happen anymore. Government's going to be run efficiently. Government's going to be run like a business. And the result is going to be exponentially more efficient and exponentially more savings. And that's going to translate to a much better life, tangible improvements to not only each individual's life, but in every single community in the 6 boroughs.
Wow, not to mention that more growth means more tax base, which means more money to be able to...
Imagine that. Imagine you actually increase GDP. Imagine you actually increase public-private partnerships so you can do jobs like make new subway lines and not have to cost the city anything, but still have the city retain partial ownership. So these private people are paying for everything. They're still making their money. They're increasing our infrastructure, but the city's still benefiting from it forever.
Wow. Okay, so here, there's a lot of politicians promise a lot of things. Okay, and this is actually what they're known for. They'll say anything to anybody as long as it's going to get the vote. So first of all, 2-part question. How are you going to deal with the idea that people will say anything, and how are you going to promise people and then be transparent about your promises and your follow through on it? What's your plan on that?
Well, first of all, my track record speaks for itself. Anything I say, I do. Any promise I make, I keep. So already, I'm not even in the same category as any of these politicians. I don't need to lie to get elected. I just tell the truth to get elected, number one. Number two, what was the second part of the question? Sorry.
The second part is, how are you going to be held accountable?
Very simple.
Dude, you're saying it now, right? But
very simple. We already came up with a plan for this. Speaking with police, speaking with government officials, speaking with emergency service workers, we were working together to draft an anti-corruption statement that will literally be a contract where I would state that I would hold myself accountable to the people. I would state that I could be actually fired and removed from office if I go against any of my promises. And I would draft it. I would get this professionally drafted. I would want it to be legally binding, and I would sign it in front of everybody. And I would ask to see if any of the other candidates are willing to sign it.
Well, I want to be there.
Accountability on paper. And as for transparency, you know as well as I do, my phone number is public. You can Google Chris Sky's phone number, and my cell number will pop up. You will see my cell number on all my campaign material.
All right. So
and there's a reason for that. How can you call yourself a public servant if you don't really serve the public? How can you call yourself accessible and transparent if nobody can access you? So I challenge any of the other candidates to give out their personal cell number to any of their constituents. Make it public. See if you can take the calls every day, all day, till 3 o'clock in the morning. People calling you for the most random thing. I do, and I do it with a smile. Why? Because I actually am here to serve the people. I'm not here to serve myself. I'm here to serve the people. And that's what makes me different than any other candidate.
all right. So what will you get out of all this? You'll become mayor. What's the goodies that you get? What's the deal? No,
Buddy,
you got.
What have I been trying to do for the last 3 years? I've been trying to wake the people up. I've been trying to teach them to stand up for themselves. And I've been trying to expose the government's agenda. So what could I do as the mayor? Everything I've been doing, only 100 times better. That's the whole point. And mayor of Toronto, of all places, Toronto, the crown jewel in the World Economic Forum agenda, the place where they want the 15-minute city, digital ID, carbon allowance more than anywhere else in North America. It's just literally me going for the jugular of Agenda 2030. Klaus Schwab, all these guys are sitting around a table right now and they're going, we got to stop Chris Sky. And you can see it in the media. You can literally taste and smell the desperation of the mainstream media. Even people that don't like me, even people that hate me are looking at the media and saying, this is complete crap. Why aren't they covering Chris Sky? Even I know he's running. The whole world knows he's running. But they're trying to make it seem like this is not happening. Because the media is so desperate to try to set the narrative that it's gotten to the point, and we saw this throughout COVID. The media was setting the narrative and the people just followed along. But when it comes to me, I can make a 30-second video with a cell phone and post it, and within a day, they have to organize massive resources of the mainstream media to try to counteract what I just said. That means they're no longer setting the narrative, are they? That means I'm setting the narrative and they're reacting to me. That means the entire government apparatus is in motion to try to prevent me from getting my voice out to you. If that doesn't make the hair on your neck stand up and make you wonder why, well, congratulations, go get another vaccine.
Oh, God. Oh, shit. Oh, man.
And sorry, I didn't mean to be rude.
It's all good.
I don't hate the people that got vaccinated. I kind of feel sorry for them. I do have choice words for the parents that force those vaccinations upon their children, because those are the people. Every time I hear people say, I had no choice, I had to do it for my job, I had to do it for this. No, you had a choice. You had a choice. Every single one of you had a choice. You could have left your job or stood up for yourself and saw if they fired you. You could have not traveled for 6 months. That's what I did. When they did the mandates, I just simply didn't travel until the mandates were relinquished. Imagine that. Oh, I had to get it for travel. No, you could have waited a few more months and then you could have traveled. You
never got a vaccine?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That's one of the ridiculous rumors about me.
Somebody made a tweet, I guess.
Yes, they did. There's a lot of that's another thing. There's a lot of Chris Sky quotes that are simply Photoshop fake tweets, Photoshop fake Facebook posts, etc. And it's ridiculous. But no, obviously I'm not vaccinated. I have a vaccine exemption. I have a mask exemption. I'm a member of the vaccine control group. And if you guys know what that is, it was started an international movement of the control group, meaning the unvaccinated. Because whenever you're having an experiment, you need a control group. So I made myself part of the control group. We were all part of the experiment. So you could have been a lab rat or you could have been part of the control group. I chose to be part of the control group.
Well, you're certainly not talking like somebody who really cares about getting the votes of people who feel strongly that the vaccine is a good thing for them.
Well, to be honest, whether you think the vaccine was a good thing or a bad thing is irrelevant. I don't care if you want to get vaccinated. Like I said, go get 10 vaccines if you want. The problem that me, myself, and a lot of other people had was the lack of choice. That's the problem. The mandates. Go take a vaccine. Go wear a mask. Go close your business. But don't tell me I have to do that. I know what's best for me. You don't know what's best for me. The very fact that you pretend to know what's best for me and my family is already insulting to me. When has the government been able to run anything better than a private citizen? Never. So now you think the government's going to be able to run your life and your family's life better than you? They can't even run a lemonade stand.
Okay, so in the city of Toronto, there's a lot of diverse people, and you got a big job ahead of you.
I love diversity because my biggest strength is breaking down all the points of division they've been using to divide us. And those biggest things are race, ethnicity, religion, mask wearing, vaccine wearing, essential, non-essential. And I've broken down every single one of those barriers. Of course, they've used every single buzzword. They've called me every name in the book. Throw enough dirt at the wall to see what sticks. But it doesn't stick because everybody can just hear what I have to say. Everybody can see the actions I've taken in the last 3 years. And they know it's not centered on preferring one group over another. It's centered on uniting everybody despite the ways they want to try to divide us for one goal. And that goal is freedom, and that goal is prosperity for our future generation.
Okay, what does it look like, and we're wrapping up now, we're getting towards the end. What does it look like if you get in as mayor, but the rest of the world still wants to push all of these agendas? You got a mayor of a city. Can you envision what that might look like?
Yeah, you know what it would look like? I would still make everything I want happen. Everyone else can do whatever the hell they want. And in 6 months from now, when Toronto is doing way better financially, way better economically, way better with mental health, way better in general, gee, what's going to happen? You think they're going to continue following the other people, or you think they're going to use us as an example and start following what we're doing?
Wow, best case scenario, man. What happens, Mr. Sky?
I win as mayor. We make Toronto the best city in the world. Saskatchewan, Alberta start following suit. The rest of Canada does. The U.S. finally takes notice, finally gets off your ass. The fact that little Canada, 37 million people, the nicest people in the world, the unarmed, the ones with no money, no organization, are leading this fight for freedom. Well, you guys there, the largest standing army in the world, with more guns and bullets and money and power than anywhere else in society, and you're letting Joe Biden run your lives. I'm sorry, but Americans, you got to step up your game big time.
All right, perfect. I'm going to probably cut it there. Is there anything else that you want to, anything else? No?
I think that just about covers it.
No, I think that's great.
Well, and I would like to put this out there too. So if people watch this and they do have any questions, I would love to do a follow-up with you of just question and answer.
Perfect.
Because I know there's going to be a lot of questions, not just about me, but more about my administration, because we touched on it, but there's a lot of stuff that I know people are going to want to ask. And the more questions I get, the more on the pulse of Toronto I will be. And we're going to be looking at every issue in Toronto. We read the press releases every day. We're going to be talking about things like their attempted decriminalization of drugs and all these major issues that we know are going to affect Torontonians. Besides the main ones that I mentioned, like the budget crisis, the housing crisis, cost of living crisis, all the rest of it. But we are going to have an administration that cares on an individual level. That's why you can call me anytime and you can ask me anything, and I'll always find a solution to the problem. Love you, brother.
Love you, man.
Thank you, guys.